Everybody, and happy Tuesday. It's time for another hour or so of good nature. And can you see where we are? We are outside here at Casa Auto. I'm joined by one of the furry roommates. He said it was such a nice, warm uh, winter evening that he wanted to stay out here with us. Can you believe what is today? March the 12th. It's actually, I think it might be the little guy's birthday. I think Tech Support Puppy is officially 4 years old now. Probably has to graduate out of that puppy stage at some point. But yeah, it was just a little warm inside. In fact, I don't know if there's a way I can show this to you. There are one, two, three, four moths on the sliding door and the siding, and I think they're all the same species. I think we have two boys and two girls, so I think there might be a little love connection going to happen there underneath the porch lamp a little bit later on. So yeah, too good of an opportunity to pass up. And plus, the wind has died down. I really thought that it might, in fact, I don't even know if I need a hat tonight. I really thought that it might be too breezy, but it's quieted down nicely. And I think we should have a good old time. So yeah, this weather, we're going to talk a little bit about it. I think in the email out, I said signs of spring. Really, spring has not started yet, but the signs are all around us, and that's really what I wanted to focus on. So let's slide into our slides for this week. Still haven't gotten used to this new layout. Should be able to share. All right, it says I'm sharing, and I'm gonna go here to our slides for tonight. The first sign of spring that I actually saw over a week ago, it was a glorious Saturday in downtown St. Charles. Can you see what's going on here? They started doing this last year. This is these are the flower boxes. This is the Illinois Bridge in downtown St. Charles. And these are the city's solution to the Canada goose nesting concerns that have been relayed by the public. Now, the city, the public works guys, they are really nice to work with on so many different levels. And they stressed to me, they said, Pam, we don't have any problems with the geese, but there were people that actually said they were afraid to cross the bridge because of geese nesting on the flower boxes. So a little bit of trial and error ensued. And then last year, I believe it was, they came up with this design. It's just a slope that's steep enough that the geese can't place any nesting materials on it. What I tried to zoom in on in a different picture, and it was just blurry, and I was hoping, well, maybe we could see them on here. These they're not really possible. There were tons of midges, chironomid midges that have come up out of the river. They are midges are also called non-biting midges or flies. They look a lot like mosquitoes, but they have the males in particular have really furry, fluffy looking antennae, and they were just coating so many things here on the bridge, which is good for the insectivores that have returned. I think we still have a lot of insectivores yet to come. And speaking in this case about birds, haven't seen any swallows yet. Didn't hear reports today, but actually, you know what I think I saw tonight? Wasn't able to get a photo of it. Well, I took a picture, but all I got was sky. Was a nighthawk. The way it was moving and the shape of its wings, I was moving at such a pace, and it was the sun was behind it. The sun was setting. This was about, oh, maybe a little before 7, I believe it was. And maybe it was even a little bit earlier than that. It doesn't matter. I could not see any markings. I could just see the silhouette, but it looked, the shape and the movements of it really looked a lot like a nighthawk. So I don't know if they could be back yet. Birding silhouettes aren't my top thing. So maybe if somebody wants to say that there's another animal that has the same silhouette, I would defer. But it's kind of what I was thinking. And with all the insects that have come up, it is probably finding things to eat. Now, what does this mean? I hear we are supposed to have cooler temperatures as we get into the second half of March. And that will be when some of those migrating insectivores start showing up. So hopefully things will work out, but it's just, things are definitely earlier than they've ever been. I was talking with Ryan, our lead restoration ecologist, today. I wanted to know how things were going with the burns. You've probably seen the plumes of smoke around town here if you're local, and actually throughout Kane County and northern Illinois. Burn season started a lot earlier than usual, and as a consequence, we, at least here at the Park District, we're all done. Ryan, we've already been seeing garter snakes that have been out sunning, and that is a sign that it's time to lay off, to cut off on the burning, because there's, sure, there might be some incidental loss during a burn, but as more and more animals start coming up, more and more ectotherms, more and more snakes, toads, frogs start coming up, you are going to see a point where the burns just aren't worth it. So we're officially done here. I did see, even though it was a red alert day, I did see that Kane County was burning again today, but woodland burns are a little bit different. I think they said they were going to be burning up at Tyler Creek. It's one thing to be burning in a dry prairie setting, and it's another thing entirely to be in the woods, where oftentimes the trick is to keep the fire going as opposed to trying to get it to go out. So yeah, we've got our goose structures up on our flower boxes. We've got our burn season wrapping up. We have to zoom out on this before we can advance. There we go. So yeah, speaking of salamanders, Ryan, for gosh, how many years has he been at the Park District now? Probably at least 6 or 7. He has been carrying on the tradition that was started by his predecessor, which is trapping salamanders in the natural area behind our nature center. So this is going to continue for a little while yet, but it did start again. It's March 12th. He usually and really what is usual these days, but in the past those traps usually go up when there's still a little bit of snow on the ground. Well, we didn't really have any snow this year, so he did set things up earlier than usual. And he doesn't have an exact count just yet. He hasn't done his tallies yet, but it's easily in the 60s, and that's the number of salamanders, not the temperature that he's trapping at. So 60 some tiger salamanders have been fallen into. So his trapping, I should have put a picture in here of the trapping setup. What he does is he lays out a line of roofing flashing. It's sheets of aluminum that are, oh, maybe 10 inches tall or so. He puts those so that they stand vertically. Salamanders can't really crawl, so it's really just something for them to bump into as they're walking along. And then they walk along the side of that flashing till they come to a bucket, and then they fall in. So every morning before 7 a.m., Ryan is out checking those traps. The buckets all have a small amount of water, a sponge, and a rescue rock in them, so that nothing that falls in is in any danger of drowning. And for the salamanders, it's good that they can stay moist. And They're really not in there for all that long of a period of time. He measures them, he checks to see whether they are boys or girls, and then takes a measurement. And with salamanders, I think we've talked about this before, you don't go from the tip of the nose to the tip of the tail, because there can be a lot of variation, particularly on the tail if there's been an injury or something has happened to part of the tail. So they do what's called the snout to vent length. The vent is the cloaca, and it's here underneath the back leg. So that measurement is always going to be pretty standard. If the snout or the vent, if something has happened to either one of those, that animal isn't going to be alive anymore. So that's why those measurements are used and are standardized. I'm going to try and get some more photos from um, the area where this is going on, and maybe we can talk about this again next week. But it's another sign of spring. The salamanders are on the move. We had some rain last week, although it was also really windy after that. So wind is rain is a salamander's friend because of their moist skin. Wind is a mortal enemy because it can dry them out. So they can get some mixed signals. If it's a warm night but it's super windy, they might not want to move. I think we're supposed to get some more rain this coming week. If it stays above freezing, they'll still be moving. If it drops below, I think we are supposed to have some overnight lows in the 20s coming up next week. That might slow them down. They might be close to done though by then. We typically see 90 some salamanders in these traps. So yeah, I'll give you guys another update on that next week. So signs of spring, the wildlife start to come out. This is at a, shall we say, a local garden center. So I know a person who used to work at this particular big box store, and they recalled having bunnies nesting in the garden center. There was a display of some kind of large ceramic pots that were low sided. They were maybe 8 inches tall or so, tall enough, short enough that a bunny could get in, but tall enough to contain a set of babies nicely. So bunnies would nest there. Ducklings have been known to nest in big box stores. Here's a goose. This is a stack of mulch, and it's way up high. I would really like to be around when the babies come down from that nest. I'm sure the goose has a plan. In fact, this might not even be the first time the goose has nested there. We've had geese nest on top of the garage behind Potawatomi, and that's every bit as tall as the stack of mulch. And for several years in a row, there was a Canada goose that nested in a tree behind Creek Bend Nature Center. It wasn't that that nest wouldn't be quite as high as this, but they do, as much as they are inclined to nest on the ground, sometimes the circumstances or their life experiences teaches them that it's they're better off up high. So there is a goose nest, and then I don't know if you can see here in the roofing supply area, there is some little owlets. There's actually there's 2 in this picture, and the day we visited, there were only 2 owlets in the nest. But earlier, say a week and a half ago, there were 3 owlets, and as of was it just this morning? Or was it yesterday? Very recently, the 3rd owlet is back again. So this is it looks rainy, and it was very rainy. The people looking at the owls were all getting quite wet, but the owls themselves are dry because this particular big box store has these outdoor storage areas that they're partially covered. They're out in the open, but there is an overhang under which these materials are stored. So the owls were dry. I would imagine they're pretty warm too, snuggled up against each other. And then Mama was actually there. I did not get a picture showing her at all, but she was there in the nest as well. The owls are big enough now that she doesn't need to be sitting on them, but she is sitting close by to protect them. The third owl, so yeah, it disappeared, and the person who's been watching these owls for a while now had said that the parents acted pretty agitated, but she couldn't quite figure out, the person who's been watching couldn't really figure out where it was that young owl had gone. So but then it came back. I think it might be possible for it to have climbed up itself. It's also possible that maybe someone at the store poisoned it. I'm gonna see if I can find out how that, if anyone gave, knowing if anyone knows of anyone who gave that owl some assistance. But in the wild, so if this isn't a pile of shingles in a big box store and instead is a nest in a tree that the owls took over, and a baby falls out. There are groups around here that will, there's tree climbers that will go and place a baby back in the nest. And there's also, um, what am I trying to say? The bucket trucks, the cherry pickers that trees services and utilities use. Sometimes they can be used to put a baby back in the nest. But owls themselves have ways of getting back in the nest. Even these little fluff balls that aren't strong enough, they don't have their flight feathers yet, they can't fly, but their feet and their legs develop, those muscles develop ahead of their flight muscles. So should they find themselves in a pickle down on the ground, they can use their legs and their bill to pull themselves up on branches or scaffolding, whatever it is that they find handy that they can use to help climb, at the very least, up off the ground and ideally back up to the nest. So we'll see. There was some video shared earlier. I wasn't able to get it to upload, but the parents were feeding all three owlets this morning. And there is one that seems bigger and more rambunctious than the other two. And I kind of have a feeling that's the one that took the tumble. So we'll see. It'll probably be the first one to fledge. And that usually happens in early April. So I don't know if these birds, I didn't get a good sense of just exactly how old they are, how much longer they'll be in the nest. But usually that first week of April is when our great horned owls, start to leave their nests. So if you happen to find yourself at a big box store, it's actually a thing I've been thinking about writing about, because it isn't just owls. As we saw, there's the goose. I mentioned the rabbits. I have another friend that works in another big box store, and they have ducklings that or nests of ducklings in their garden center every year. So there's kind of a thing. Of course, a lot of these stores have birds inside the store too. That's usually, even though they're protected from the elements, a lot of times when they're in there, they get confused about how they get in and they can't get out, and there's nothing to drink. They can usually find food, but then they get thirsty and they can't find something to drink, and then it doesn't end well. So so it's not so much the wildlife on the inside of the store that I'm interested in, but all these different types of creatures that like to live on the outside. I just think that's really interesting. Making their homes at a home improvement store. There's got to be an angle there. I got to fine tune it a little bit, but that's oops, that was another sign of spring. Some more wildlife there in the big box store. This is the stump that Laura, you had called attention to a few weeks ago. Still trying to get to the bottom of the local history here. This is a stump that is at Delnor Woods Park, and I've walked by the stump a lot. Laura, you've walked by the stump a lot. It was only recently that you noticed that it's not just a stump, it's a stump that has this is tree and this is concrete. And if we zoom in on it here, we see that there's this is got a very unnatural straightness to it. It's almost it's concrete, but it looks almost like bricks. You know, see that sharp edge there, that sharp corner? This has more of a pattern to it, but it might be the pattern from inside of the tree, as if someone poured this in there. They noticed the tree was hollow and they felt that it would be best to try and stabilize it by pouring cement inside of it. I don't know. And I also noticed this looks like a cut. I don't know if when this tree was taken down, if somebody, you know, that could be really bad if a chainsaw were to bite into concrete like that. But the Delnor Woods Park, and this portion of the park, I believe, was part of the old Collins family golf course. And there's a gentleman who lives locally who used to be the groundskeeper there, and I'm trying to find out if he might know the history, if he, you know, might know of who could have poured that concrete in there, or if the other thought was, gosh, did the tree grow around some sort of a post of something? Is it even older than what we were thinking it might be? But I love this time of year. It's a lot of people look at it and go, oh, it's just so ugly out. There's no color really to speak of. There's a lot of grays and browns. But there's a lot of things that are visible now that won't be once everything leaves out again. And this is one of them. So keep on that and see if we can't get to the bottom of the mystery of the, sounds like a Nancy Drew mystery, doesn't it? The concrete tree, the mystery of the concrete in the tree. Yeah, we'll see if there's a cool old story behind that or not. Now, so this is a beaver. It was photographed in the same pond where the quote unquote nutria was spotted last fall. So I'm kind of wondering if our wildlife spotter from over on the west side of Geneva may have gotten his rodents mixed up. Perhaps it sort of sounded like he didn't realize that beavers could be living in a retention pond. These are animals that move about town in storm drains, and there's some pretty big storm drain outlets into the ponds over in this west side Geneva neighborhood. But this was there was a woman from DeKalb County who's I stay in pretty close touch with, because they see some pretty cool things in DeKalb County, and sometimes when the wind is from the west, then we get to see them here in Kane County. So she'd asked me if we'd seen any loons in this area, and the nutria spotter from last fall said he had seen a loon, and his birding skills are pretty good. So I gave her the directions to the pond where the loon might have been, and of course, when the day she was there were no birds there, but she did then go by this pond and see this critter, and she thought it caught her eye because it was the middle of the day, and two, it was so big. And that was the description the nutria spotter had said as well. Now nutria, it would be really unusual to spot a nutria in northern Illinois. They have been spotted a few times in southern Illinois. They are considered an invasive species, not just in Illinois, but in the United States. They're a mammal that was brought here as a source of fur, and they escaped their captivity and have been kind of running amok in the southern states. They destroy a lot of habitat when they move in. They're I would describe them as smaller than a muskrat, or sorry, smaller than a beaver, but bigger than a muskrat. And then the thing you want to look for is the white whiskers. They have white on their face, whereas neither our muskrats nor our beavers will have that. But this, the woman who spotted this animal, she said it had to be, 50, 60 pounds. And that would definitely put it in the beaver class. So I would imagine in the weeks to come, we'll be seeing other signs of beavers in this West Geneva neighborhood, probably some missing landscaping. That's when beavers tend to run afoul of people. People are supportive of beavers until their expensive landscaping starts to disappear. So we'll see how that story over there plays out. But I think we may have cracked the mystery of the beaver, mystery of the nutria, by finding this beaver over there in Geneva. Since we're talking about mammals, got a couple of interesting things here. Now, this was a find from a couple of weeks ago, and it's very, very, very old scat. We're probably looking at something from, it might have even been last, like a year ago. This scat from last fall still is holding its shape in a lot of different places. But I thought it was interesting because it's winter deer fur. And we can tell that. Let me see if I can zoom in here. Each of these hairs is a little hollow tube, and that's the deer key to staying warm in winter. These actually have quite a dimension to them. When you're looking at it, it's much thicker than just a piece of fur or a hair. Here's one that's squished, so you can see the tube as it's flattened out. You can see how much material there is to a deer, an individual piece of hair from a deer. That air that's inside each tube of hair is what helps the deer insulate itself. That air acts as a layer of insulation. It keeps the warmth of the body heat in, and it keeps the cold out. Now, I'm guessing this was probably a coyote scat. Again, from a long, long time ago, probably scavenged from a deer that had been hit by a car. But don't oftentimes get to see deer fur in this sort of condition. It's just kind of a fun thing to run into. Now this next picture I'll say, because this is kind of pushing in here, talking about and holding in my hands a scat like this, even though it's very old. This next one I was even shocked to see. So this was at this next picture coming up was at Otter Creek Bend over the weekend. This was one of our Rachel, who works at the nature center, one of our fellow employees out there. She's been out herping already, and she's very excited. She's going down to the Snake Road this coming weekend. She finds lots of cool things in her adventures. What she found here, and I didn't include the other picture because it was pretty gross, but this is a coyote scat of a fox. Let's see if we can zoom in here. That's what she described it as. See, we've got the claws here. We've got the toe pads. She said there was a lot of red fur in the scat too. Coyotes, they do kill foxes. I didn't know they actually ate foxes. So this is kind of a new one on me, but there's been people who found cat collars in scat, coyote scat. There's been a lot of things that these animals have consumed that have made for some interesting leavings, but this is the first. I kind of want to find out a little bit more from her about where she found this at, because I'd like to go see it myself. But it's at Otter Creek Bend. If any of you are adventurous enough to go looking for it, drop me a line. I'll get you some GPS coordinates if you want to go check it out. Now, it was just a little while ago, we had our volunteer appreciation dinner this evening at Potawatomi, and I've been meaning to get a picture of the new-ish sign. We installed this last year. This is the native plant garden. I always call it the best kept secret at Potawatomi Park. We have thousands of people that visit Potawatomi every year for uh, weddings and picnics and fireworks. Well, used to be the fireworks, or tennis courts or softball teams, but very few people make it around to the back of the community center to go visit the native plant garden. This is an area, it was first built out with a grant in either 1998 or 99. And the mission of the native plant garden is to, actually its full name is Native Plant Demonstration Garden. And it's to show people here in suburbia how they can grow native plants in their yard in a somewhat garden-like fashion. So, a lot of people have the impression that natives are going to be, they're going to have kind of a shaggy look. They're going to be unruly in their growth habits, which they certainly can be. But if you can keep on them, you can pull them if they get out of hand, that sort of thing. But that's the purpose of this area. It's quite peaceful back there, and I thought it might be a good chance to go hunting for some signs of spring. Now this isn't. This is a tree that is one of my favorite tree species. It's called blue beech or musclewood. Carpinus caroliniana, I believe, is the Latin name on it, but musclewood is how I learned it, and it's named that because of the way the bark on the tree, it looks like the bark has been stripped off, but it hasn't. This is how the bark grows, and it looks like the muscles of an animal or a human. Isn't that cool? And there's two of them. They're next to the veranda behind Potawatomi. There are, if we go back here to the previous picture, I don't know if no, the tables and chairs aren't out yet, but boy, if you're local and you're looking for a place to just kind of kick back and get away from things for a little bit, the veranda here behind the community center is one spot, and then farther back in the garden, there is some new furniture that was donated by our park foundation. So it's a nice spot to go and chill out and watch the world go by there along the Fox River. So there's a little corner. It's at the, let's see, the northeast end of the garden, and it's where the hepatica grows, and the hepatica is in bloom. We've got this, several flowers here on this plant are white. And then right next to it, there is another hepatica. It's only got one bloom so far, and it was purple. It didn't photograph quite as well as I'd hoped. It's actually a much deeper purple color. And as you can see here, they're side by side. There's now I've looked, I did not see any bloodroot up yet, but the bluebells are coming along. Some are unfurling like this, and others are even starting to send their buds up. So yeah, March 12th and our spring wildflowers are popping up quite a bit ahead of schedule. Ryan is saying at least 2 weeks, maybe even more than that. Now, again, things are supposed to cool off. The last part of the month is supposed to be cooler than average. So we'll have to see where things go. Now, I have a couple of just quick little videos, and I couldn't get them to go into the album here. So we're going to go back to just my regular photos. And we're going to see here. I took some pictures of some crocuses. In fact, I was wondering, if any of you have ever heard of any relationships between crocuses and ants. As we get farther along with our spring season here, we'll be talking about how important ants are to our spring wildflowers, how the ants are essential in carrying the seeds for a lot of our woodland wildflowers. But I wasn't aware of any connections between ants and crocus. And I don't know, these crocus blooms, these are blooming actually by the mini golf concession at Potawatomi Park, and they're quite low to the ground. These blooms are maybe, I don't know, 3 inches above the ground. So maybe the ants are just there because the crocus are growing right next to their anthill. I don't know, but there were quite a few ants on here. They weren't here, they weren't around the stamens. They didn't seem to be gathering any pollen. I don't know if there's a nectary in there that they were going after. Maybe there's some sweet liquid down there that they were interested in, but um, yeah, lots of ants. So let's see if we can get this to play. It was pretty windy when I did this. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's our red-winged blackbird. Um, and I wanted to then compare that. So there was a time when I was kind of new to this field that I had trouble with let's play this one, distinguishing the red-winged blackbird from this bird. And it's funny because the red wing is so very, let's look in here. So that's a song sparrow. And he's gonna go again here. So he's singing about every 6 seconds or so. He was letting a song go. Tweet, tweet, tweet. So there was something about the raspy quality of the song sparrow's song and the similar quality. Listen to it again. And then if we listen to Mr. Redwing here. Yeah, no, see, now I don't have any trouble at all, but back in the day I would mix those two up all the time. And it's something they sing it about the same time. The Red Wings might have started a little bit before the songbirds, but they're both the song sparrows, but they're both um early early spring singers. And it's confused me. Maybe I've confused you, but listen for them both. They are both setting up their territories right now. This was another plant that I came across when I was at the native plant garden. This is on the southern edge. I was looking to see if there was any bloodroot up on the more the sunnier end, and I did not see any yet. But this is called Virginia waterleaf because of the way the leaves look like something has been splattered on them. Doesn't really look like water. It looks more like whitewash. But let's see if we can zoom in here on these. Some very early growth here kind of makes me wonder. I had seen some waterleaf plants last fall that were about this same stage, and I don't know if that's a usual thing, if they put on some growth in the fall and then go dormant as they go into winter, or if this is all growth that's occurred within the last couple of weeks. So many things that I wish I could be out there all the time, chronicling and monitoring these things to see if this is, because I feel like there's a need to be taking note of what's going on, because it does seem so unusual, so different from what we're used to. That I think was it in terms of the activity with our flowers. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week. Let's take a look here. Oh, this this is when I tried to take the picture of the Nighthawk. It was right there. And then it took off. But um uh here, lots of talk about the dams these days, and I'm not gonna get into point and counterpoint. I think there's going to be a lot more discussion um, as to the fate of the dams in St. Charles, as well as many of our other river towns. They're all going to be facing the same choices. It is a heck of a deal if they're looking to have the dam removed, to have the government offer to pay for such a substantial portion of the dam removal. It's an attractive offer, but there's a lot of people who say that we need to keep the dam. But one reason that is not valid, and it's something I can remember standing in maybe even this very same spot as a little girl with my dad, and he would point to this area right here. And he'd say, well, that's the fish ladder. That's how the fish get over the dam. And I don't know how widely held that belief is today, but that's why that was put there. It's hard to see now with the water spilling over it, but it's a series of steps. And if we had salmon, maybe trout, animals, fish species that are used to living where there's a steep grade and where they're, climbing up over boulders to get back to their spawning grounds. Maybe a system like that would work, but our local Illinois fish, they're like us, they're flatlanders. They're not used to having to jump like that. And it's not something that's going to allow fish to pass from below the dam to above the dam. It's yeah, well, we'll probably be having more talks about the dams in the future, but I've been meaning to take a picture of it now for some time, and there it is. We can see the water. It's up. It's not a flood stage or anything, but with the rain that we had, and then we're going to have some more rain here a little bit later on this week, so we'll be seeing these water levels rise yet again. With the number of impervious surfaces we have in our area, the river provides. It's not just the land adjoining the river that's draining into it, but all the tributaries that have had subdivisions built on them are draining into it. So the Fox is very flashy is one way to describe it, but the waters rise very quickly when we have a rain, such as what we had on Friday and what we have coming up again. So the water can rise very rapidly from all of the impervious surfaces that are out there. I'm a little distracted, folks, because now one of the moths that was over on the wall, my house, has come over here to the lamp, and I'm wondering if we stop the share, be able to show it to you. Okay, I'm gonna hold my hand up. I'm not good with moth ID, but here it is. This is one of the, oh my goodness, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember that movie, The Birds? When was it Tippi Hedren was sitting by the the diner, and there was one bird, and then there was 3 birds, and then there was 6 birds, and then there was 25 birds, and they were gathering. Well, we've gone from 4 moths to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This would be number 9. Again, I'm not good with moth ID. We know it's a moth. 1, timing is a clue. It's evening time. 2, those antennae are probably a better clue. Yeah, I didn't put the webcam on tonight. This is just my computer camera, but you can see those antennae are they're thread-like. They're not, there's no knob on the end. And that's a clue that we are looking at a moth too. Now, some moths, the males will have a feathery antenna and the female will have feathers to a lesser extent. And then other species will just have these thread-like antennae, and that's what we have here. I'm going to see if I don't want to put it back on the lamp that I have out here for fear that I will take it inside, and then its chance of making a love connection tonight will be zero because it'll be inside instead of out. So seems happy to stay here on my hand. So I guess we'll just leave it there for now. Let's see, we got a few chats to get to before we sign off for tonight. I don't know if you can hear that. Tech support puppy is crunching on something out there in the yard. It doesn't sound like bones. I don't think he's eaten anything, but eaten any animals, but I don't know if he's got a, can you hear that? You probably can't hear that. There's major crunching going on right behind me. I think he's got a stick that he's tearing apart. Let's hope that's what it is anyway. All right, let's see what do we got here in our chats. The killdeer, yes, the killdeer. Where did I hear killdeer the other night? It's a repetitive killdeer, killdeer, and it's on and on and on. I was just, where was I? Was it? Oh, it was at the big box store. As I was going out to my car. I actually did end up making some purchases there, and I had to bring my car around so they could load up. I bought some new lumber for the outdoor turtle enclosure. And yeah, so the killdeer are back there, another early migrant that returns, and quite vocal too, and one that's apt to call not just in the daytime, but also at night. And Meredith, in the South, they used to do bricks inside of a tree that was damaged. Some old photos from some, yeah, I kind of want to say that as a kid, one of the houses, my grandma's old house that we lived in while my folks were building the house that I grew up in, there was a tree there that had been filled with concrete too. And I think it was, before tree care became what it is today, I think people felt like that was going to replace the heartwood that had rotted away and was going to give the tree some stability. But the problem is that it really just kind of, when the tree is at that point, adding the cement isn't really going to do anything. You probably are looking at a tree that would be safer coming down if it's in a place that's going to do damage if it comes down. I'm a big advocate for just leaving them, let it be hollow, let it be habitat. But yeah, that's me. Baby owls, Anne says, will walk up a tree by stretching to grab on with their beak, and then up with a foot, and then up. Yeah, yeah. Then that's what I heard do. I heard the term laddering themselves, because it is. Think of this. So these birds, great horned owls, they don't build their own nests. They take over another animal's nest. Sometimes it's a squirrel nest. The squirrel nests work great for squirrels. They don't work that great for owls. And as the owls get bigger, the nest gets flimsy, starts to fall apart. And so there is a good chance that these creatures are going to take a tumble at some point before they're really ready to. So nature has provided that ability for them to be able to do that. So that's a great description, Ann. Thanks for sharing that. And then, Rachel took pictures of the beaver activity at Otter. Yeah. So, I love our decision makers at the park district have an attitude that if we have beavers in our park and they are not doing any harm to any adjacent private properties, that they can just stay and do what beavers do. There's some especially subdivisions and HOAs where there's a policy where they trap the beavers to get them out so they don't do damage. And thank you, Laura, for saying beaver activity as opposed to beaver damage. A lot of people, when they see a chewed down tree, when they see a dam, that's stopping up part of a creek, they call it, oh, look at all that beaver damage. And that's a loaded word. I think we've talked about that before. It's not. The beavers don't mean to be doing damage. They're just doing what their brains are telling them to, which is stop the water from flowing so that they can either have a safe entrance into their bank burrow or have sufficient depth where they can build a lodge. Now that reminds me, I have not been up recently to Norris Woods to peek across to Fearson Creek Fen to see how that beaver lodge is coming along. That had the makings of being pretty impressive structure, and one that I don't recall seeing. I know most of the beavers that live along the Fox River dig into the bank. They don't tend to build out and create a lodge like we would see on, say, a pond that was formed by a beaver dam. So yeah, I wonder, because boy, there's a lot of beavers along the Fox River. There's a lot of beavers along Fearson Creek, along Otter Creek, along Mill Creek. I kind of wonder if we're going to get to a point where we are going to see more. In fact, well, I just got a text over the weekend. There was one that was run over on Eola Road, south of here in Aurora. But I think we might be getting, the beaver population might be getting to a point where there will be more road mortality, and there might also be more removals as well. As people don't see it as activity, they see it as damage. I don't know. I always tend to cheer for the beaver. But again, that's just me. So yeah, that's looks like we're at the end of the chats. We're at the end of the slides. It is a lovely evening out still, folks. I'm going to try and take tech support puppy who's still crunching. I got to go down there and see what he's got. I think we're going to go for a little walk, because I think it's probably still, let's see, I won't say what it is. 61 degrees at 9 o'clock on Tuesday, March 12th. If you can poke your nose out one more time before bed, highly recommend it. It's a lovely evening. We'll be back again next week with more good nature. I appreciate your time this evening, and I look forward to seeing you again in about 6 days. Thanks, everybody. Have a good
night, Pam.
Thanks,
Thank you, Pam. I missed you.
Great to see you.
Thanks, Pam.
Good night.